Welcome to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, where tour players, legends, and the top instructors in the game share their stories, insights, and playing lessons. Join Chris every Tuesday night as he talks with the greats of the game. Tonight's show is sponsored by TaylorMade Golf, the PGA Tour Superstore, 2 Under, Golf Pride, Strixon Cleveland Golf. Your best performance starts with the right golf ball. Sun Mountain Golf Bags, Finn Scooters, making the game more fun. Edel Golf, hit it, flip it, dial it in. And the Macklemore Club experience, live above the clouds. Now, here's your host, Chris Mascaro.
Hey, good evening, folks, and thank you for joining me on Next on the Tee. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro. I can't begin to tell you how excited I am about tonight's show. The trio I have for you tonight makes ZZ Top look like a high school garage band. We're going to talk about who that is in just a moment. But before we do, I want to thank all of you again for voting Next on the Tee up to number 2 in the Podcast Magazine Hot 50 list for their June edition. You guys are so great. I'm so thankful for all of your support. We have an opportunity for one last push to get the show up to number 1 for the July edition, so please go online and vote, and you can do so daily at podcastmagazine.com/hot50. We are so close. Your vote could be the one that makes a difference, so please go online and vote. I really appreciate all of your wonderful support. And speaking of wonderful support, I want to give a special shout-out to Mark Evans listening over in England. Mark, thank you so much for the shout-outs this past weekend on Twitter. I really appreciate you doing that and your support for the show. Same to John Moran listening in Indianapolis. John, you're awesome. Thank you, my friend, for your support as well. Okay, on to tonight's show. First up is going to be two-time major champion and one of the best on-course commentators on the planet, Dottie Pepper. Tonight, I'm going to get Dottie's thoughts on the battle going on right now between the PGA Tour and the LIV Tour. It just gets more intriguing by the day, doesn't it, folks? Dottie made history at the Masters, becoming the first on-course commentator. So looking forward to hearing what that was like. I'll get her perspective. And you guys know, this drives me nuts. Why are guys insisting on going for the pin on 12 during the final round of the Masters, or any round for that matter? Hit it over the bunker. Guys see that pin on the right side of 12, they go for it, and more times than not, they end up in Rays Creek and their tournament is over. I want to hear Dottie's thoughts on all of that. We'll also talk about the incredible success her book, Letters to a Future Champion, has seen. Completely sold out, folks, which is absolutely amazing. Dottie is going to join me here in just a few minutes. Following her, I'll get a return visit from the only player to defeat Tiger Woods twice in a match play event, and that's Nick O'Hearn. I'm going to talk to Nick about what those matches were like. We'll also see if Nick had a number, had his countryman Greg Norman come to him when Nick was out on tour in the early part of the 2000s. Had Greg come to him with a number about joining an alternate tour, would Nick have listened to that idea? I'll also get Nick's thoughts on fellow countryman Cam Smith and his performances earlier this year at the Players' Championship, which he won, and the Masters, where he had an opportunity to win, ended up finishing tied for third. Plus, we'll hear about Nick's new book, How to Play Your Best Golf. Looking forward to having him back on the show. He'll join me about 25 minutes from now. And then we'll round out tonight's show with a return visit from Michael Breed. Since I know how much you guys love the game of golf, I know you're like me, listening to Michael's show, A New Breed of Golf, every day. I'll get Michael's thoughts on the steady stream of players migrating over from the PGA Tour to the LIV Tour. We'll hear which players he thinks would be a backbreaker if that player or players left the PGA Tour and went over to LIV. I'll get his thoughts on a couple of articles written by his friend Mark Cannizzaro of the New York Post about the tour's greed, oh, by the way, and unwillingness to listen to its own players who came to them last fall with ideas how they could stave off interest in anybody going over to the LIV Tour. This whole thing may have been averted had they just listened to the players. And you may know that Michael loves baseball. You may know that Michael played high school ball. But did you know he once pitched back-to-back games? First game he threw it right-handed. The second game he threw it left-handed. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more when he joins me a little bit later on in the hour. So there you have it, folks. More great stories, tips, and information are coming your way tonight on this edition of Next on the Tee. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in and taking the journey with me tonight. Before we get started, I want to remind you about our friends over at the Macklemore. As you guys know, my buddies and I, we were there again a few weeks ago for our annual golf trip, and it was even better the second time around. Everything about the place is first class. The accommodations are fantastic. The practice facility is great and has gotten even greater since they've opened their new Himalayas putting course. The on-premise restaurant called The Craig is outstanding food and service. And to say the course is spectacular is an understatement. Can't say enough great things about the place, folks. Go online to themacklemore.com to see for yourself how spectacular it is. The golf course is co-designed by our good friends Bill Bergen and Reese Jones. Our friend and PGA Tour caddy and my guest from a few weeks ago, Kip Henley, said, outside of Pebble Beach, it's the most beautiful 18th hole he's ever seen. Golf Digest agreed, naming it the best finishing hole in America since 2000, and Links Magazine doubled down on that, naming it one of the top 10 finishing holes in all of golf. See why we're all bragging about the course and the resort by going online to themacklemore.com. And folks, this segment of the show is brought to you by our friends over at TaylorMade. Golf's an interesting game because the better you hit the ball, the fewer shots you have to hit. That means the better you hit the ball, the less golf you actually have to play. That's why TaylorMade made the all-new Stealth Iron. TaylorMade Stealth Irons feature a catback design with a 3D toe wrap designed to deliver increased distance throughout the bag and more forgiveness on those occasional, or maybe not so occasional, less than perfect shots. The result? Better shots more often, so you get to have more fun more often. So if you're the kind of golfer who wants to play less golf more often, try the all-new Stealth Irons from TaylorMade. Beyond driven. Okay, now back in Next on the Tee with me is Dottie Pepper. Let me remind you about Dottie's background. She's from Saratoga Springs, New York. In 1981, at the age of 15, she won the New York State Amateur and the New York Junior Amateur title. She repeated as New York Junior Amateur Champion in 1983. In 1981, she was a member of the Junior World Cup team as well. She was low amateur in the 1984 U.S. Open. She played her college golf at Furman, where she was a 3-time All-American and lettered all 4 years. She won 5 collegiate tournaments, which is tied for the most in school history with Betsy King and Beth Daniel. Her career stroke average of 75.96 is still one of the top 15 all-time there. She had top 5 finishes in the NCAA National Championship in 3 of her 4 years during her college career. She was named the Furman Female Athlete of the Year twice in 1985 and 87. She was inducted into their Athletic Hall of Fame in 1991, and their annual Coaches Award is named in her honor. She was a member of the 1986 Curtis Cup team. She turned pro in 88 and won 17 times on the LPGA Tour, including 2 majors at the 1992 and 99 ANA Inspirations. Her winning score of 19 under par in 99 is still the lowest score to par in a major. She had 5 other top 5s in majors while out on tour. She was a member of 6 Solheim Cup teams. She retired from competitive golf in 2004, and she began working as a golf commentator in 2005 for the Golf Channel and NBC. She's also been in the booth and doing on-course commentating for ESPN and now CBS. She was inducted into the South Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame in 2008, and I am very honored she is back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Dottie, thanks for coming back on the show.
Chris, how are you tonight?
I'm fantastic. How are you? You're a busy lady. What's going on?
Well, dinner's on. I've timed this out perfectly. You know, this type A personality and schedule-driven person has homemade risotto. I will okay, not totally from scratch because I didn't do my own bone broth, but risotto from scratch, semi on the stove, and I think we're about 30 minutes out.
That is perfect. So, Dottie, talk about what your schedule looked like. You're a busy lady, like I say. What's coming up for you?
I'm actually in the wind down part of our schedule. I've done 15 tournaments so far for CBS, one with the Latin America Amateur Championship for our friends at the Masters and the USGA and RNA. So that kind of kicked off the season. And then we went to San Diego and now right to this point, leaving for the John Deere Classic on Friday morning. So we're we're sunsetting our schedule, but we've still got an amazing trip to the Scottish Open ahead. 3M, as I said, John Deere this week, and then we'll end up with Detroit and the Wyndham Championship in Greensboro.
Dottie, you mentioned the Masters, and you made history at Augusta National, becoming the first on-course commentator in the history of the tournament. Augusta National doesn't change things up like that often. How did you learn that that was going to take place, and what was that like for you?
So it's funny. I can actually pull up the date and time of the phone call on my saved messages, and it was from our producer at the time, Lance Barrow, and well, I'll tell you when it was. It was October 2nd of 2020, and he said, just wanted to check in with you. I was actually in the Pilates studio doing a workout, and just wanted to check in with you and see if you'd be up for walking the golf course and being the only walker on the ground in November, the November 2020 Masters. And I couldn't call him back fast enough. I was shocked. I was surprised. And then I ran right back into my instructor, and we booked, we doubled up between then and when I was going to leave for November, because it's the November Masters, because as you know, anybody who's been on the grounds knows how difficult it is, especially if you're hauling more equipment on you. It's understatedly, I think, the most secretly hilly golf course that we certainly play on our schedule.
And to that point, Dottie, you had to be in tremendous shape, because you're great just because you're always great at what you do, but you never sounded out of breath. And like you say, Augusta National's got to be the most difficult walking course. And I think something most of us don't realize, you talk about hauling equipment, you got a bunch of weight wrapped around you trying to get up and down those hills. Talk about the challenge of doing that.
Well, Chris, I sort of knew what was coming, but yeah, at that time, because of the COVID restrictions, I was carrying a monitor plus all of the RF equipment, radio frequency equipment that gets me on the air. But I think the other interesting thing was that this was all brand new, because there'd never really been that ask at Augusta National for somebody to be able to relay that information in real time. So it was a learning experience for a lot of people. And the team that CBS and Augusta put together to make that happen technologically was pretty amazing. And we continue to learn, because now this is the third time I've done it.
And Dottie, I read that Tiger Woods saw you out there in the fairway and stopped to ask what you were doing there. You mind sharing that story?
Well, typically there's not a lot of people inside the ropes at Augusta National at any time during the tournament week. And I, because of the weather, was originally assigned to Dustin Johnson. But as you remember, the first day of the November 2020 Masters, we had a significant rain delay. So it kind of pushed everything out about 3 hours, if I remember correctly. So that it changed the wave. So instead of going with DJ, I then was able to finish Tiger's round and then go with DJ from the start. So I got to, in between 13 and 14, I called the shots at the green at 13, jumped up ahead, and was cutting across the fairway behind the players at the 14th in the middle of the fairway, and Tiger stopped dead in his tracks, and he said, "Wait, what are you doing in the middle of the fairway here?" Because there's just never been anybody on the ground. And I just quickly said, as I kept on walking, it's so 2020, isn't it? Because we just did things differently in 2020 than we'd never done before. And to some point, we continue to do that.
And Dottie, when I was listening to you earlier this year covering the Masters, on Sunday, after Cam Smith made that great birdie on 11 to give himself an opportunity to make a back nine charge, when he got to the 12th tee, Frank Nobilo, who joined me a few weeks ago, he talked about what the yardage was. You confirmed that Cam had pulled a 9-iron for that shot. And I said to my son, when you said that, that's not enough club. And then he put his ball into Rays Creek. And I want to get your thoughts. Why do players insist on going for the pin on the right-hand side of that green on 12, particularly on Sunday, or just on any round for that matter? Because when they do it, more often than not, they end up in Rays Creek, and then their opportunity to win the golf tournament is pretty much evaporated.
But I think you have two things that work there. I would say for the majority of the players on the PGA Tour, a bit of a cut is the preferred shot. So it's sitting there asking for that shot to be hit. Secondly, Cam was, in this particular situation, Cam was coming off an adrenaline boost with a birdie at 11. It was back within, as things can happen on the second night at Augusta, a two-shot swing here, a two-shot swing there. And I think that the combination of the two played in. There was a set up where the flag's there. If I hit a soft cut, I can get to it. I've got adrenaline pumping. I know I really don't want to be long either. But I would say when I got that signal from the tee, I was a little surprised too.
Dottie, going back to your history there at Augusta National, you were on the grounds for the 1987 Masters as a young college kid. It's kind of a miraculous story of what transpired for you as a player at Furman at the time and how you got tickets and then got into the players' parking area. Do you mind sharing that story?
Well, I had won the Lady Paladin, our home tournament. The team had also won. The day before, we finished on Saturdays, and I had a phone call from a booster at Furman who had 2 extra tickets. He and his wife were not going on Sunday, and said, would you use them? Nobody says no to that opportunity. We're 2 hours away. So yes, I would love to do that. But had no idea. I mean, I think I had a total of $20 in my pocket, Chris. That was all I had after, a whole week at our tournament, and this just kind of popped up. But I remember after being on the 86 Players Cup team, we were told that the player badge, player pin, will get you into any USGA tournament. And I thought, well, it's not a USGA tournament, but I'll stick it in my pocket anyway. And I also have my low amateur pin from the 84 U.S. Women's Open. So I get down there, really can't find any place to park. And I thought, well, might as well give it a try. So I rolled up to Magnolia Lane, and the security guard waved me through. I gave him a showed him my 2 badges, and he waved me right through. And then when you got up to Founder's Circle, or close to it, they continued to wave me to the right. And next thing I knew, I was parked in player parking. It was pretty crazy. I mean, that would never, ever happen today. But I thought, well, okay, here I am. So I went with a teammate of mine, and we walked. I'd never seen the first 9, especially from 4 on television. So we walked the entire first 9. We had plenty of time. We went and walked par 3, and then we went back and we started following the group of Larry Mize, of all people. And it turns out that he won.
And Dottie, I know you were a big Seve fan, and you and our mutual friend Matthew Lawrence may have been the only 2 people in the States pulling for 70 in the 86 Masters. That's right. Which, as I recall, you watched in a van with the Furman's men's golf team on the way home from a tournament. Talk about the experience of trying to watch the 86 Masters, and were you crushed when he hit that ball in the water on 15?
I was absolutely crushed. I had gone up to Chapel Hill to visit one of my best friends. Well, my best friend from college golf, Candy Kessler at the time, Candy Comer now, and I got my ride back from the men they played in the Tar Heel Invitational. So it's Sunday at the Masters, and we have this, I don't know, it might have been a 6x6 black and white, plug it into the cigarette lighter sort of television. And we were all huddled over this little tiny screen. And I remember switching from affiliate to affiliate all the way from Chapel Hill all the way to Greenville. And we'd lose a signal and pick up a signal, like somebody, mess around with the antenna because we can't miss a shot here. But devastated when Seve hit it in the water. Absolutely devastated.
Dottie, I mentioned Matthew Lawrence, and he wanted me to say hello to you for him. And he said, ask her, what's the greatest round of golf you've witnessed as a player or as an on-course analyst?
Oh, wow. I think for somebody who had the mojo and just kept it going, it was Rory at the RBC in 19 at the Canadian Open when he shot 61 in the final round. not very often you get assigned to a player who's totally got it going in the final round and starts to break, kind of knock on that door. And that happened at Hamilton. That was pretty cool, to watch that. I've been around players like Tiger, and have had some pretty amazing experiences watching those guys play at the very, very best. John Rahm, threw 54 holes at the Memorial before he tested positive for COVID. That was golf on autopilot, and to not be able to watch that come to fruition, you don't know what would have been. Dustin Johnson going mega low in Boston in the FedEx Cup playoffs. I guess that was in 20, when he, 30 under or something. It looked like a typo on the leaderboard. But I think Rory shooting 61 last day in Canada was pretty spectacular.
Dottie, switching gears a little bit. Yesterday we heard that Matthew Wolff and Carlos Ortiz and Eugenio Chichara are the latest PGA Tour players that are going to go join the LIV Tour. Back in February, no one was talking about the LIV Tour, really taking it seriously. Certainly not that, that some of the top players in the world would ever go over there. And people were even talking about this thing may not even get off the ground. What are your thoughts about where we are right now?
I think you have a decision as a player about where your priorities are, about what you play for, who you play for, why you play golf, why you dreamed as a kid. And I can promise you that not one of these players that have gone to the LIV Tour grew up standing over a putting green as the daylight faded as a kid saying, this is the putt that I'm going to make to win the LIV Championship. It's greed, and I just think when money is at the forefront, it's not healthy for anybody. And I think players have forgotten where they came from. I think they've forgotten the platform that gave them the ability to make these choices.
And Dottie, most of the players that have gone over there aren't like, didn't floor me. Outside of Brooks Koepka, because I thought Brooks was all about the majors. We've heard him talk about it for years. He really didn't care about the other tournaments, didn't really practice very hard for any of the other tournaments. But as a four-time major winner, I really thought that's all he was out there to do, was to win majors. And this now takes that away. Were you surprised at his defection?
I was a little surprised. Again, I don't know what's going to happen going forward with eligibility in the major championships. Nobody knows. To me, this is exhibition. And I played on a tour that took criticism for having 54-hole events, that wasn't real competition. So what is this? It's not real competition.
Dottie, is there a player or two that if we learned in the coming weeks, this guy and that guy are going to go over to LIV, that would really put the PGA Tour behind the 8 ball?
No, I think today changed the ballgame. I think the DP World Tour and the alliance now that's has been bolstered, has been reinforced with the PGA Tour. It makes a big difference, and it makes a difference in ways that I think maybe the tour hadn't excelled. And I think going back to a calendar year, going back to the Q school, creating an avenue for players to get to the PGA Tour from the DP World Tour and still be able to go back and support their home tour answers a lot of questions and gives the best place to play professional golf among men.
Dottie, I want to go back to your playing days. You won your first major at the 1992 ANA Inspiration, back when it was the Nabisco Dinah Shore Classic. You beat Julie Inkster in a playoff, but it was a wild finish. She had a one-stroke lead over you and Patty Sheehan going into 18, which was a par 5. Patty hits it just over the green with her third shot. Julie sticks it in there about 10 or 12 feet. And then you step up after that and hit it inside of Julie to about 4 feet. Give a little fist pump when that shot gets pulled off. Take us through what happened from there.
It's funny. I had dinner Saturday night with Nick Faldo over at the Travelers, and there were 6 of us sitting around the table, and he said to me, Dottie, what was the most significant shot of your career? And I think that wedge shot set up everything that happened after, because it, enabled me to go into a playoff for a major. It, to me, validated everything I'd done for the previous couple of years and kind of set everything else in motion. And it was a wedge that landed 4.5 feet or so under and right of the hole. Julie had a 10-12 footer, like you said, left it short, coming downhill from the left side. And I didn't have any choice. I mean, the ball had to go in. And so it's one of those will it in sort of putts. And then I made a routine 4 at the first hole playoff. And this is bar bet information for you. So I won the Dyna twice now, which is the Chevron Championship. But I only dove once because I won on the landlocked 10th and they had to get off the air. So I got the trophy from Dyna and the chairman of Nabisco, and off we went. Never saw water. Which was a good thing, I think.
Dottie, one more before I let you go, and something else that you may have never imagined in the past, but your book, Letters to a Future Champion, My Time with Mr. Pulver, sold out of the hard copies of that book. You got a handful left there of the soft copies, but knowing that book became so meaningful to so many people has got to make you feel great.
It does, Chris. It was I think today, a year ago, that I watched the tractor trailer roll up with the second printing, and it put me in the neighborhood of like 100 copies total. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world am I going to do with all of this? And I mentioned Candy Comer earlier. Her son was actually here, and he and I unloaded that truck and moved most of it into our basement. Wow! And it was we earned our meal that night. And I've sold through about 70% even of the paper copies, and I printed that many so that I could get it out the door, even in a state like New York that taxes at whatever percentage, so that people can walk out the door, kids included, with a really valuable book printed in the highest manner possible for less than $20. And we did it. And I'm so proud of it because I still get notes from people saying how they've read it, how it reminded them of their mentors. They've reached out to their mentors, and that they've given it to a family member and they've done the same thing, or a friend and they've done the same thing. And then last fall I did the audio book, mostly because my grandmother has macular degeneration, and while I gave her the printed copy of the book, she couldn't enjoy it, so now she can hear it. So it's been such a great journey to share what was so meaningful for me, a relationship with a retired professional who really laid the groundwork for everything I've been able to do in the game, on the course and away. It's been remarkable.
So Dottie, before I let you go, let our listeners know how they can get one of those few remaining soft copy books, and then also where they can listen to the audio book and then follow you on social media and on your website.
Okay, so the website's the first answer. You can always get my book at dottiepepper.net. I fill all the orders myself. If there's a request for a personalization, I handle that all myself. How you can get to the audiobook, it's virtually everywhere now, starting at Audible, and that's actually listed on my website as well with Direct Connect. So when we went to Amazon, that was a big deal. But now it's on Audible, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, anywhere you want to be able to find it, it's there. And what was your second question?
How can we follow you on social media as well?
Yes, on social media. Okay. I'm on Instagram at Dottie_Pepper. Same thing on Twitter. And I do have a professional athlete account on Facebook as well at Dottie Pepper.
Dottie, you're awesome, my friend. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy night to come back and be a part of the show. I hope we have the privilege of catching up with you again soon.
Would love to do it. And I wish you could smell the kitchen because it's really good right now.
I wish I could too. I'm jealous as I could be. Good for you and your husband. Dottie, you're fantastic. Thank you. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Chris.
See you, Dottie. That is the great Dottie Pepper. DottiePepper.net is the website. The book, again, it is called Letters to a Future Champion, My Time with Mr. Pulver. You get an opportunity to get a soft copy of that book or go online on Audible because Dottie's one of the narrators. So you'll get to hear her tell the story herself. It's fantastic there, too. Dottie is just one of the most special people on the planet, one of the best color commentators and analysts you'll ever find in any sport. And I'm very honored that she came back to be a part of the show tonight. And like I say, I hope we get the privilege of having her back on the show again soon. Before I get to my next guest, Nick O'Hearn, I want to give a shout out to a couple of our sponsors, starting with our friends over at Srixon Cleveland Golf. Your best performance starts with the right golf ball at Srixon. A global leader in golf ball technology and innovation, Srixon offers a wide variety of award-winning golf balls for golfers of every skill level. Whether you're searching for a tour performance golf ball or a distance golf ball with incredible feel, Srixon provides the best golf balls at incredible prices. Srixon offers a wide variety of personalized options while also developing a highly visible colored golf ball as well. Select the right golf ball for your game today and trust it with Srixon. Check them out online at Srixon.com. Srixon.com. Find the right golf ball for your game today. I also want to remind you about our friends over at Sun Mountain. There's a company nestled in the valley of Missoula, Montana, that embodies the essence of quality, function, and innovation, and that's Sun Mountain, which started building golf bags back in 1981. They are an industry leader in golf bags, travel covers, outerwear, and push carts. With flagship products that you've come to know, like the C-130 cart bag, the 2.5 ultralight stand bag, the Club Glider travel cover, the Speed Cart, and Rainflex rain gear. Sun Mountain continues its quest to provide the very best in golf products to every range of golfer. Visit them online at sunmountaingolf.com to look at their amazing products. Okay, now back in Next on the Tee with me is former PGA Tour pro Nick O'Hearn. Let me remind you about Nick's background. He's from Perth, Western Australia. He grew up playing baseball, tennis, and golf. He turned pro back in 1994. Nick qualified for the European Tour on his very first attempt going through Q School in 1998. He played on the European Tour from 1999 to 2007, where he had 7 second-place finishes. In 2004, he earned his way into the top 50 in the World Golf Rankings. 2005, he moved up to number 24 in the world and was a member of the international team at the President's Cup. He teamed with fellow countryman Peter Lonard to defeat Davis Love and Kenny Parry in the Friday matches. And on Saturday, he paired with Tim Clark to defeat Fred Funk and David Toms. In 2006, he moved up a few notches to number 21 in the World Golf Rankings, and he won the Australian PGA Championship when he holed out from the greenside bunker to birdie the 4th playoff hole and defeat Peter Lonard. That season, he also had his best finish in a major, tying for 6th at the U.S. Open, and he won the Australia-Asia Order of Merit. Nick is the only player to defeat Tiger Woods twice in the World Golf Match Play event. He did so in 2005 and 2007. He's written 2 wonderful books titled Tour Mentality Inside the Mind of a Tour Pro, and his latest book is How to Play Your Best Golf, which you can find both of those out on Amazon.com. And I'm thrilled to have him back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Nick, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Chris, it's great to chat.
Nick, it's sort of magical because here I am talking to you at a little after 8:30 on Tuesday night, and it's Wednesday morning for you over in Australia. Sort of like a look into the future. It's got to be a weird thing.
It is certainly weird. We probably got a bit of a delay, but that's the unfortunate part about technology. But yeah, I'm just pulling over. Actually, I'm heading down to play a golf course down on the Mornington Peninsula here in Melbourne, and looking forward to a fun day.
Nick, like I mentioned in your intro, you recently published your second book titled How to Play Your Best Golf, Strategies from a Tour Pro. Talk about what we're going to learn when we get the book.
Well, it's an interesting one with this book because my first one was more about the mental game, and ever since then I've been thinking of writing a follow-up to that one, but more about all the things I've been helping golfers with, I guess, the last few years. And really that's, to do with strategy and how to play in different conditions and off different lies and really how to how to get the most out of your game. I think my wife summed it up perfectly the other day when she said, this book is all about everything you don't learn on the driving range, which is a pretty cool way to think about it, I guess, because it's not so much telling people how to swing the golf club. It's more so how to play to the best of your ability with whatever swing you have, whatever putting stroke you have, and things like that. So it's very much a get the most out of whatever you have type of golf book.
And Nick, when I went onto your website, which is nickohearn.com, I got to ask you, I see a picture on there of a golf ball with a kangaroo drawn on it. Is that the way you marked your golf ball, or is that just done for the website?
No, that's the way I've done it my whole career. Funnily enough, my wife, back in about 2000, I was representing Australia at the Dunhill Cup, and she said, "Oh, you should do something patriotic." And I thought, well, okay. And she's an artist, so she said, "Oh, let me draw a kangaroo on your golf ball." So I started doing it back then, and then once you realised you had to draw about 24 kangaroos every week on these golf balls, or 36, depending on how many balls I went through, she said, "You know what? I think you need to learn how to do it." So it's one of those things where I draw on the balls every time, and it featured quite prominently on a number of years ago on one of those Titleist commercials where it was, how do you mark your golf ball?
Nick, I want to get your perspective with what's going on between the PGA Tour and the LIV Tour players going from the PGA Tour over there. Do you think is it a money grab, or do you think there's more to it than that?
Oh, I think you answered the question right there. Of course it's for the money, that's for sure. And if anyone says any different, well, I'm probably at least sure they're lying to themselves, but and to the public for that matter. Yeah, it's it is all about the money, obviously, but I can sort of understand it for a lot of the players in certain times of their career. I mean, if they don't think they're going to be prominent players and really, I guess, feature in majors too much anymore, well, then it makes sense for them to go, I guess, if they want to just sort of retire and enjoy the fruits of all their labour from beforehand. But if you feel as though you're still competitive and you want to play against the best players in the world, well, then the PGA Tour is where you obviously want to be. So, there's a lot of conflicting stories, and it's a fascinating time for golf at the moment. And I think even though it's very much fracturing the game right now, I think in the long term it'll be a good thing, because the tour has obviously come out and then they're starting to change their schedule, introduce new types of events. And I think I just heard today that the European Tour is going to start giving cards out there for the PGA Tour as well. So it's very much disrupting the game of golf. And I think in the long run it'll be good for the game, but right now it's obviously it's on a bit of a collision course. So we're going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next year or two.
Could we have avoided all of this, Nick? I mean, it seems like, to your point, Jay Monahan is making a whole lot of adjustments, which are very LIV Tour-esque for the things that he's seeing going on over there. I would have guessed that players had come to him. Norman may have come to him at some point with all of these suggestions, and they were sort of waved off like, no, we're not doing that. But now that they've sort of been forced into it, these ideas suddenly became really good. Could we have staved this off?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, obviously you had the Premier Golf League was another idea, what was it, a couple of years ago, and I heard they'd been trying to approach the PGA Tour about it as well, and maybe introduce some elements that they had in mind, which is very much what the LIV Golf Tour seems to be all about. And it's a case for the PGA Tour. I think, they feel as though they have this very much a hold on world golf, and they almost thought, well, no, this isn't going to happen. We're the number one tour in the world. And the closer it got, people said, well, I think it is going to happen. And they seem to just wanted to put it to the side and really not take much notice. And now that it is going, they've kind of gone, oh, heck, okay, well, we really need to do something now. So they probably could have avoided this scenario, I guess, in a way. Whether they wanted to develop a relationship with Greg Norman all those years ago, who knows? But we're in a very tumultuous time right now, that's for sure. And, as I say, in the long run, I think it will be good for the game. But right now, it's providing some very interesting comedy not comedy, but commentary for folks like yourself, Chris, that's for sure.
Did Greg ever come to you and your peers on tour back when you were playing in the early part of the 2000s with, an idea for doing something different? Was this something that has been sort of, you mentioned, a tour a couple of years ago, but I remember Greg talking about a world golf tour way back in the day. Is this something that you guys heard about, 20 years ago that he was thinking about doing?
Well, back in I think it was more the early to mid 90s is when he was talking about the world golf tours and that sort of an idea. And the PGA Tour pretty much, didn't copy his idea, but they that's where the World Golf Championships all started, was after he, I guess put forward the idea of having a World Golf Tour. So that was their counter to things he was saying. Unfortunately, the World Golf Championships probably over the years haven't really developed as much as they would have liked. So it's, one of those things. And as far as Greg approaching me, no, I've never had any commentary with him as far as anything like this goes. Again, that was back in the 90s, and really it's only been in recent years, I think, when he started all this up with the LIV Tour.
Nick, I want to go back to earlier this year at the Players' Championship and the win by your fellow countryman Cameron Smith. He won by a stroke, but not without some tense moments on the 72nd hole. Talk about what you saw from him and perhaps the worst and best shots of his career happening right there on the last hole.
Yeah, well, I guess it started with the tee shot. He'd had the quick hooks going, so it was no surprise to see him well out to the right and in the rough. I guess what did surprise me was how aggressive he was with that second shot. I figured it was more of a punch out sideways and leave himself maybe an 8 or a 9-iron in. And that one sort of surprised me because that's his home course. I guess he should have known that the fairway does run quite a bit across there, and maybe it was a bit of adrenaline. But as it turns out, when you have a wedge game like his, I mean, what a phenomenal fourth shot that was, where he almost holed it. And you knew basically all he had to do was get something on the green, and the way he was putting that day, obviously he's one of the best putters in the world. He was probably going to hole it. So you talk about a roller coaster of emotions. I mean, it reminded me a little bit of Adam Scott back in the day when he hit his second shot in the water and then had to get it up and down for his bogey to win as well. So maybe there's something about Aussies on that final hole. I don't know. But what an amazing win for him, and just an outstanding young man. And I just wish he'd get a haircut.
Nick, fast forward a few weeks to the Masters, and I thought he was going to make a charge on the back nine on Sunday after he birdied 11. But the moment my last guest, Dottie Pepper, said that he had pulled out a 9-iron, I knew it wasn't going to be enough club. And then one of the things that always drives me nuts, Nick, is guys going flag hunting on 12, especially on Sunday when it's there on the right. It just never is the right play. It seems like the shot is always, no matter where the pin is, it's always over that bunker. What were your thoughts when he got up there and flared that shot into Race Creek?
Well, we've seen it so often, haven't we? People hitting it right into that water. I mean, for me, interestingly enough, the 12th is never an issue because I'm a left-hander, and that's one of the easier holes for a lefty, given the way the green angles. But as far as Cam goes, I think one of the things people didn't really comment on was when he first was walking into the ball, there was a group walking off the 13th tee, and he sort of backed away. And rather than resetting and going back arting all over again, he just kind of backed away and then walked back in again. So I don't think he was as clear, perhaps, walking into the ball. And then I'm pretty sure he wasn't going flag hunting. It was just more a case of it was a poor swing. I think he was aiming over that bunker or even left half of that bunker, which everyone knows that's where you need to go. But he just got a little quick on it, and maybe just wasn't as committed a swing as, it obviously wasn't as a committed swing as he had been putting on every other shot all day. So, but to me, I think it was that moment just before he actually walked into the ball where he had to back away and then walk in again. I would have loved to have seen him just gone back to the bag, reset, and start the whole process over again, because they had plenty of time. There was no rush. But, in those situations when you're close, it's a very fine line between winning and losing, obviously. And all hats off to Scotty Scheffler as well. I mean, the way he putted and how he got it up and down and grinded through that round, that was an amazing effort.
And Nick, the previous Masters in November of 2020, Cam became the first player in Masters history to shoot in the 60s all 4 rounds. To me now, this makes him one of the favorites every year going into the Masters. In your mind, is he a guy that should be in the top 1 or 2 for, if you're going to pick a winner, one of those guys needs to be Cam Smith?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, his wedge game and his putting is second to none, really. And I think you could say the same about Scotty Scheffler as well. So you always need to have a great wedge game and putting around Augusta. Now, for Cam, it really just depends on how he's driving the ball, I think, because he's a fine iron player. And if he can get himself in position off the tee, well, then the course opens up nicely for him. And he's quite long off the tee these days, so the length of the golf course isn't a factor. And one thing that kind of surprised me recently was at the US PGA Championship at Southern Hills, how well he struck the ball and how poorly he putted. That was probably one of the worst putting events that he's had all year. So was a bit of a flip-flop in that regard. But regarding Augusta, yeah, I'm always going to be back in Cam. He should be one of the favourites for sure.
Nick, like I mentioned in your intro, you beat Tiger Woods twice in the World Golf Match Play event in 2005 and again in 2007. And in our past conversations, you said the key to beating Tiger is to get up on him early because he rarely comes back to win. And we've certainly seen that, play out over the course of his career. Not a lot of, if he's not winning after 54 holes, not a lot of charges out of Tiger outside of 2019. And I'm not sure it was an actual charge in 2019 at the Masters, more than guys falling back to him. But talk about how you were able to make him uncomfortable and get those 2 wins.
Well, I think first and foremost, I like to tell people that I found his weakness, and that was he doesn't like short-hitting left-handed Australians. So, as I mentioned, I think probably in previous conversations, the Tiger is the ultimate front runner, and as you alluded to it, he'd only ever won majors, either leading or tied for the lead going into the final round. So if you get behind him, you kind of really don't have much chance, because when I played him, I was treating this like a final round of a match play. Final round of a major, so to speak. So my plan was to get up early on him. And as it turned out, in our first match in 2005, I had an 8-foot putt on the first hole for a half, for a par. And my caddy says to me, Nick, this is for the match right here. So it was a big statement, but he knew that would lock me in. And I made it 30 the next 2 holes, went 2 up through 3 and never really let him back into the match. And then fortunately, the second time I played him, I went in with trying to get ahead early, but early on he wasn't actually playing very well. And through 7 holes, I was 4 up and I was just making pars. We're in Tucson, Arizona. It was a pretty cold, miserable day. But sure enough, he hit one of those shots that he does where he gives it the famous club twirl on about the 8th hole, and I knew he found his game, and he pegged me all the way back to level through 16 holes. I managed to birdie 17 to go 1 up, and then he birdied 18 to send it into extras. So he had his one chance to beat me on the 19th hole to get 1 ahead, because at this point I'd actually never trailed to him in 2 matches, but he missed his birdie chance, and then I got him on the next hole on the 20th. So my theory holds true. If you can get ahead of Tiger in match play, if you ever get a chance, not that too many people do get a chance, you have a chance to beat him. So I was very fortunate to be 2-0, and there probably won't be a third time, that's for sure.
Nick, one more before I let you go. And you turned 50 last October 18th. Any chance we're going to see you playing out on the Champions Tour?
Highly unlikely. I'm very happy being back in Australia these days. I may make an appearance perhaps on the European Seniors Tour. The one thing, when I played in the US, unfortunately, I never won over there. So for me to get on the Champions Tour, have to be a lot of qualifying and a lot of practice and hard work. Whereas these days, I love helping other golfers and letting them work hard. But I may make an appearance over in Europe on the Senior British Open or some events over there. And if I happen to play well, maybe that'll lead to some events in the US. But for the time being, I'm very happy being back in Australia and watching my kids grow up and helping other golfers, which is a lot of fun.
Nick, before I let you go, remind our listeners again how they can get a copy of your book and then also follow you on social media.
Yeah, sure. My book's available on Amazon. That's probably the easiest way to get it. And I believe it's probably just coming out in all major bookstores there in the US now. It's in Europe and Australia. It's available everywhere. Social media-wise, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, those sorts of things, or I have my website, nickohern.com. You can always email me through that, and I'd be happy to help any questions anyone ever has.
Well, Nick, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day over there in Australia. It's Wednesday morning over there. Thank you for that very much. Thanks for coming back on the show. I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
All right. Thanks. Great to chat, Chris, and all the best. Cheers.
Thanks, Nick. All the best to you and your family. That is the great Nick O'Hearn. NickO'Hearn.com is the website. Again, the title of the book is How to Play Your Best Golf, Strategies from a Tour Pro. You can go out on Amazon.com and get that. Nick's a fantastic guy. He's always been very generous with his time, and I certainly look forward to catching up with him again real soon. Okay, now back in next on the tee with me is not only one of the very best instructors in our game, but also the host of a couple of the best golf shows on the planet, A New Breed of Golf and Course Record, and that's Michael Breed. Let me give you some background on Michael. He's from Greenwich, Connecticut. Played his college golf at Randolph-Macon College in Ashland, Virginia from 1981 to 1985. He was a 4-year letterman and was their number 1 player for 3 years and team captain his senior season. He won 6 times during his college career. Michael also played on their baseball team and once pitched back-to-back games, one right-handed and the other left-handed. We'll talk more about that in a minute. He also played on the varsity tennis team and had a minute on the football team as well. Michael was inducted into their Athletics Hall of Fame in 2004. He went on to play on the Korn Ferry Tour and the PGA Tour. Since that time, Michael has soared up the rankings as a golf instructor. In 2003, he was named one of the top 100 instructors in America by Golf Magazine and has remained on that list every year since. In 2012, Golf Digest named him one of their top 50 instructors in America, and now he's inside their top 20. Also in 2012, Michael was named the PGA's National Teacher of the Year. Among his many other awards, he was named the Metropolitan Teacher of the Year in 2000 and 2009. He was the Metropolitan Horton Smith Award winner in 2006 and 2007 for being a model of golf education. We've all been watching and listening to Michael help us improve our golf swing since he joined the Golf Channel in 1999. In 2002, Michael put the pilot together for A New Breed of Golf. Took a minute, but in 2008, that pilot turned into the Golf Fix, which made it on air on Monday nights. I listen to Michael and his co-host Greg Ducharme every morning on my way into work on A New Breed of Golf, which you can find on Sirius XM Channel 92. And I'm very thrilled to have Michael back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Michael, thanks for coming back on the show.
Chris, I'm telling you, that is, if I listen to more introductions like that, I'm going to start to feel pretty good about myself. That was quite an introduction, my man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Michael.
Yeah.
So, Michael, we have to start by hearing about those back-to-back games you pitched in college. One right-handed, the other left-handed. That's unbelievable. But you got to be a baseball manager's dream because you could pitch on 0 days rest.
Well, let me tell you. First of all, it wasn't in college. I was 11 years old, but I love whatever story you're going to tell. So I'm all in. It was, it was at a time when I was trying to figure out whether I was a right-handed pitcher or left-handed pitcher or shortstop or second baseman. I didn't know what was going on. But I had two gloves, and fortunately it worked out. So, yeah, I pitched a little righty, and then when that kind of didn't work out, I switched over to lefty, and that worked out a little better. So I got it done.
So, Michael, was your dream as a kid to be a PGA Tour player or shortstop for the Mets?
You know what? That's exactly right. My dream was to be a baseball player. That's all I wanted to be. And, fortunately for me, I was a three-tool player, and I needed to be a five-tool player. And so I switched over to golf right when I was literally sort of in the high school, college frame, and ended up going to Randolph-Macon to play a little baseball, and then turned out I played a little baseball and a little golf and a little tennis and football, and I had myself. Nobody is going to say that I didn't enjoy my college time. I had a great time, played a lot of sports, had a lot of fun, no question. And Michael, you endowed a fund to the men's golf team there in honor of your coach Ted Keller. Talk about what Ted meant to you. I appreciate you bringing that up. So Ted Keller was first of all, he was a phenomenal athlete and was a great coach, not just of the golf program, but also of the football program, and led my Randolph-Macon Yellow Jackets to the Newt Rockne Bowl in 1969. By the way, as an aside, the Randolph-Macon Yellow Jackets basketball team just won the national championship a few months ago at the Division III level. Josh Merkel, the head coach over there, and I've had the pleasure of talking to the team and adding some I'll call it wisdom, although it's that's probably a stretch, but I have had the opportunity to be a part of Coach Merkel's team and talk to some of the kids. The athletic programs at Randolph-Macon are phenomenal, and Ted Keller, it all traces back to him. He was a football coach over there, and obviously a golf coach, and then the athletic director, and he passed away sort of suddenly. And I know what the game has meant to me, and I know what Randolph-Macon has meant to me, and I made it a point to make sure that I was a part of the future of the game at the college. And so we endowed a scholarship program in his name, and have continued to be a part of it ever since.
Michael, switching gears a little bit, and your positive attitude and demeanor is what hooked many of us on you and your shows years ago, especially as we started to watch you on the Golf Fix. But as you know, like, social media can be a pretty nasty, negative place. How do you power through and deal with all that, not get caught up in that negativity and all that back and forth that we see too often on social media?
You know, I appreciate you asking that question, Chris, because one of the things that I look at, I'm a golfer, right? So I coach people how to play, and I always look at what something can be, not what it is. And I know there's a lot of people that have had some challenging situations in their life, and whatever that may be. I look at it like it's an opportunity for me to maybe take somebody that is looking at the world through a negative prism and try to maybe alter their mind in one way or another. And so, you know, I engage in it because I really think I can help in a weird way. And then you get to a point where with some people you can't help, and that's just the way it is. And you kind of, and I don't want to say I throw a pity party, but I certainly go, look, you know what? I'm sorry. I thought I maybe could help in one way or another. It's not going to work out, but best of luck to you, and I hope you have a great weekend. You know, that type of stuff. But there are other people who, believe it or not, will go down that path. I'll ask them to email me. I'll give them a phone call, and I'll have a conversation with them. And you know, in most situations, I'm able to kind of take them and get them to maybe look at something through a different lens. It's kind of like, and we talk about this a lot on our shows. There are some coaches that will ridicule a player for what they've done, and then there are other coaches that will say, all right, next time, let's try this instead of doing that way. Why don't we try to do it this way? So I like to be a next time kind of coach instead of a ridicule coach, and I look at that in all facets of life. And so, you know what, if I can help one person, that's great.
Michael, we're on the heels of the Travelers Championship played up there in Cromwell, Connecticut, just a little south of Hartford, and you played in the 1994 Greater Hartford Open. You Monday qualified at Lyman Orchards in Middlefield to shoot 69 to make it into the field. But what was it like for you, not only getting in the field, but then dealing with the pressure of being in a PGA Tour event, plus I'm sure having your friends and family out there following you around for the rounds that you played?
You know, it's interesting. So I shot 71 in the final round, which I didn't make the cut, but it was the last round of golf that my dad ever watched play, and he passed of Alzheimer's. And in a weird way, when I kind of look back at that now as almost 30 years ago, I certainly think that there was sort of a script to that. I can't tell you that I would imagine if you went through Monday 4 spotters and you kind of looked at it and you went, how many times does 3 under par get in? It's not very often. And I happened to win that qualifier at 3 under, and not that it wasn't a good field, but you know, there were tricky hole locations and things of that nature. And what I can tell you is that when I reflect back on that time, it was an amazing experience for me, and certainly one that, you know, having played some events on the Korn Ferry Tour and having a little bit of experience at that higher level, to get into a tour event, and then particularly to get into a tour event up there, you know, in Connecticut, which is my home state, that meant a great deal. And it was just, you know, it was one of those things that it was a fabulous experience. I did not get caught up in the illusion that I was going to be a touring professional. It was clear many years prior to that I just didn't have the game that you need to have to be able to play at that level and certainly make a living doing it. But it was a phenomenal experience, and the cool part is that, you know, I earned it. It wasn't something that was given to me. I went out there, I played good, and I had been playing good for a period of time there, and got in and enjoyed a phenomenal week. And the other thing that's really interesting about that is in that 4-spotter, one of the individuals that got in, a guy named Jim Gentile, is one of my very close friends and a guy that I had roomed with when I was down in Florida trying to figure out whether I was good enough or not, probably 7 years earlier. And then one of the other guys that got in was a guy named Brad Frey, who I worked with at at Birchwood Country Club, he went on to play golf at the University of Richmond. And 3 of the 4 of us, there was a connection there. And it was just one of those sort of, it's like finding a 4-leaf clover. You kind of look for it, but it rarely shows up. And in this situation, it did.
Michael, I want to switch gears and get your thoughts on what we're seeing going on right now with the PGA Tour and LIV Golf. It seems like every week we're hearing about another player or two heading over to the LIV Tour. This week it's Matthew Wolff, Carlos Ortiz, and Eugenio Chichara, the number 2 ranked amateur in the world. Many people are talking about the defections being a pure money grab. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I see Jay Monahan kind of scrambling around, making changes, doing some things that are looking like some of the things that they're doing over there on the LIV Tour. What are your thoughts about what we're seeing right now?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think, one, it's impossible to compete with a $620 billion backing that has no interest of what we would term success, right? Success is much the same way as I explained to you about my playing career. I knew I wasn't going to be able to play at the level that I'd be able to make a living on the PGA Tour. And, it's expensive. It was expensive to play the Korn Ferry Tour. At my time, it was the Ben Hogan Tour. It's an expensive thing to do. And the model that the PGA Tour has is quite a bit different than the model that the LIV Tour has. So at that point, you can't really compete no matter what you do. And the PGA Tour, I applaud them for what they're doing in making an effort to try to make the purses somewhat similar. But at the end of the day, there's no way that the PGA Tour is going to be able to pay somebody a $200 million playing bonus or a $150 million playing bonus. You can't do that. And so you can't really compete with that. And for me, when I look at this, what I love about the game of golf is it's quite simple. The guy who shoots the lowest score wins. And it's pure. There's no relief pitcher. There's no designated hitter. There's no timeouts. There's no coach that you can talk with. There's none of that. You go out there and you are the person that is going to pitch. You're playing third base. You play shortstop. You play first base. You play all the positions. You hit all the shots. And so all the pressure is on you. And that's what I love about the game. And then the guy that does it the best, the person that does it the best, makes the most amount of money. Right? It's a true meritocracy. Well, the LIV Tour is not that. I know that the tournaments that they play in, the purses are very high, and that is somewhat of meritocracy. Although I would argue that with the team part of it, it's not really. But at the same time, what it shows is that the PGA Tour. I look at it this way: somebody's trying to buy golf. Some entity is trying to buy the game of golf. And you know what? It can be done. In a weird way, it can be done. And you're seeing it with individuals like Bryson, like Dustin, like Brooks, that are walking away from the PGA Tour so that they can somehow make a little bit more money, a lot more money, playing the LIV Tour. And that to me, I'm one of those people, and look, I've never been the smartest guy in the world, but I've always been a guy that's going to work hard, and I've always felt that if I can outwork individuals, that I can have success, and that's the way it's proven to be. And now, when I look at this thing, I don't look at it through that light anymore. I don't look at it through the light of the best player wins here, because that's not necessarily the case. In fact, it's not the case.
And Michael, your friend Mark Cannizzaro of the New York Post, he wrote an article not that long ago about how Jay was sort of warned about what LIV had in mind going back to last fall. Some of the players met with him and shared some ideas that may have been able to stave this whole thing off, but he rejected their ideas because, as Mark said, the tour's greed and the need to control everything. As more comes out, what are your thoughts? Are we starting to learn that maybe there's sort of both sides were wrong?
I'll tell you this, Chris. I grew up in a family. My mother was a lawyer. My uncle was a lawyer. My cousin's a lawyer. I know the law, not enough to be able to practice it, but enough to be able to know one thing, that there's three sides to every story, and there's only one that's right. I know enough to know that there's not a way in the world that I could possibly get into that conversation. I don't know. What I know is this. I know that Jay Monahan is sitting in a very difficult situation, and he's doing what he needs to do to try to make sure that the PGA Tour stays afloat. That's his hired responsibility, and he's doing the very best he can for the players on the PGA Tour. To that end, I look at the players on the PGA Tour, and they, like me, have sponsors, endorsement deals, corporate outings, and all that. And the PGA Tour created those opportunities for the players. They set it up, whether you want to go back to 1969 or 1964 or 1957. I don't care what year you go back to. That was the model. And you see the same thing as you watch, this week is Wimbledon. You see the same thing as well. United States Tennis Association sets up some stuff, and all of a sudden these players walk around and they've got logos all over the place, and they're getting paid quite nicely from these people, these sponsors. So I look at it through the light of the PGA Tour has done a lot to try to help grow the brands of these players, and I think Commissioner Monahan is doing a fantastic job. Is he perfect? I only know of one perfect being in my entire life, and I never met the man. It was over 2,000 years ago. So I am quick to say I don't know what perfection looks like, but I also think that there's a lot of people who buy into the Vince Lombardi model of, strive for perfection in hopes of greatness. And I think, what you see out of Monahan and what you see out of players on the pack is they're trying to figure out how to make the very best situation that they possibly can for players that are playing on the PGA Tour. And past that, I can't really comment on the other stuff because I don't know, candidly, anything else about it.
Michael, you've been an advocate for years, I believe, about tour players getting appearance money for playing in tournaments, and I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. As we see Monahan making some changes, could this be a good change that comes out of all of this, that we start to see the players at least get a little something if they show up for a tournament, go through the pro-ams, out there entertaining us on Thursday and Friday? Maybe it's not their best week of the season, but at least they've drawn us out there to go watch them play. Could we see, do you think, that these guys might get a little something for showing up?
Well, it's interesting. I think that the PGA Tour has taken a lot of steps down that path. I think you see some of the payouts that are happening to players that are sort of in that 125 range, that they're getting bonus pools at the end. So I think they've done that. And what I would say, and what I was an advocate of, is what the PGA of America does, and the PGA Championship, Masters does it, USGA does it, and also the R&A with the Open Championship. If you qualify to play in these events, that even though you don't make the cut, you make some dollars. Some pay out $5,000, some pay out $10,000, whatever, but they do make money. And so, that's been something that I've believed that the PGA Tour should do. And I certainly think that they're doing it, maybe not the week of the event, but certainly by the time the year is over, these players are getting compensated for their expenses that they incur when they go and play, be it at Travelers or wherever it may be.
Michael, just a couple more before I let you go. And I was listening to you on your show this morning when you were talking with Brad Faxon and asking him about Lexi Thompson's putting performance coming down the stretch on Sunday. I was rooting so hard for her to pull this thing off, and I got a little concerned on 14 when she made the bogey, but she makes a nice putt on 15 to come back. But then what we saw from her on 16 and 17, she sort of reminds me of rooting hard for Phil to win a U.S. Open back in the early 2000s. You just held your breath and thought, you hoped that the train wreck didn't happen. What were your thoughts about what you saw from her over the last few holes?
Well, there are a lot of things. I think Lexi is a brilliant player, and I felt the exact same thing that you felt. All of us that were watching it felt the exact same thing, which was you're hoping that she makes it, but your brain, you can't watch it without thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to miss. And by the way, it's not like it's, inside. She missed a 1.5 foot or 2 foot putt. It was very short. She never touched the hole. There are a couple of thoughts, right? Obviously, there's a compassion that you have that you feel so bad for. At the same time, what it does for me as a coach, and what I think to myself, and what I share with my students is, you have to find something that when you are nervous allows you to perform. And she's gone to the claw grip, and that style grip doesn't seem to be able to take out these twitch muscles that she has that are creating that. Now, look, there's no question that it's a mental thing, not a physical thing, but at the same time, the way back to mental strength sometimes is believing in what you're doing so wholeheartedly that you can't rationally figure out how you could miss a putt. And I think you've seen it with a number of players who have gone to the arm lock style or left hand low or lead hand low. And I do think that at some point, Lexi's got to experiment with something in the alternative to what she's doing right now, because what I fear, and we saw this at the U.S. Open as well, or the U.S. Women's Open, what I fear is that this is going to continue until she finds the model to be able to help her right the ship and get through this. And I think when she does do that, and I believe she will, then I think that there are not just one major, but many majors that are ahead of her. But she's got to find the key to allow her to be able to have the confidence to know that she can hit her target under pressure. And right now, it just looks like to me that she's just trying to move a ball, not try to hit a ball in a specific direction at a specific speed.
Michael, one of the things that I've talked to my other two guests tonight, Nick O'Hearn and Dottie Pepper, about, one of the things that drives me crazy is the 12th hole at Augusta National. We were talking about, guys going for the pin on 12 on Sunday, but even during the other round. To me, the play is always over the bunker. And they sort of give you that sucker pin on Sunday where it's sitting right nicely out there on the right-hand side. And guys go for that and end up in Rays Creek. Talk about, why do guys insist? We've seen it happen badly for year after year. We saw in 2019 when Tiger won, guys going in the creek. We saw Cam Smith go in the creek. We've seen Jordan Spieth go in the creek. Why do guys continue to go at that pin when they know they don't need to do that?
I think it's a couple of things. I think, one, circumstances speak to what you do. So I would you can't make all situations the exact same, right? You're right. Koepka hit it in there, and Poulter hit it in there, and a lot of guys have done that, no question. But the circumstances are different. And what I would say is that it's very difficult to take an elite level player, put a 9-iron or a wedge in their hand, and ask them to play away from a flag because they think that there's a possibility that they might not be able to pull the shot off. And one of the things that I know all too well is that these players that are the elite players that are out there on the PGA and LPGA tours, they're out there because they believe they can execute the shot, and most times they do. And so what I would say is that it's a very difficult thing to take that player who's playing great, by the way. It's not like they're coming in there. Like, take Molinari. He was playing fantastic golf, without question. And he hit a bad shot. Should he have played away from that? I would say this. He could have played away from that. I don't know that he should have played away from that. And to that end, the other thing is that in your mind on a Sunday, you have seen so many of these failures, right? That there's the competitive side of you, much the same way as reflect back to when Phil Mickelson won at Augusta, and he's in the pine straw on 13 with a a club in his hand, and we're all debating whether he's going to lay up, and he's trying to figure out whether he's going to hit 6-iron or 5-iron at the flag. I just think there's a competitive nature that exists inside of every one of those players that says to them, I can aim this thing 12 feet or 10 feet to the left of that flag and be fine. And what ends up happening is that sometimes they do and sometimes they don't.
Michael, before I let you go, remind our listeners how they can stay up to date with all the great things you're doing. First of all, listen to your show, and then find you online and on social media.
Yeah, so in every single place, it's just at Michael Breed. So they can find me there. Also, too, on Sirius XM. I host a new breed of golf, and it is from 8 to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, and then we have best of shows that are on Saturday and Sunday on PGA Tour Radio, Sirius XM 92, and then also on CBS. And coming up this Sunday, I'll have a half an hour show leading into the PGA Tour coverage of the John Deere Classic, as well on CBS Sports Network every Monday. You can find me there on A New Breed of Golf. So I'm kind of all over the place, and I appreciate, obviously, all the things that you're doing, Chris, and working as hard as you have worked to try to fit me into the schedule. I know I have a crazy schedule, and you do as well, and I appreciate your patience and also inviting me to do it and finally being able to work it out. And what I would say to you is thank you for all you're doing for the game of golf. You know how big I believe in growing this game, and it's little things like what we do, what you do, that gets people interested in the game, provides insight, and also the stories that you tell. And we certainly appreciate it. Those that are fans, we certainly appreciate it, and I do as well. So thank you for all you do.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Michael. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come back and be a part of the show. I hope I get the privilege of catching up with you again sometime real soon.
I look forward to that as well, Chris. Thank you.
Take care, Michael. All the best to you and your family.
All right. Thanks, Chris. All the best to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye-bye.
That's the great Michael Breed, folks. And like I say, nobody does it better than Michael does. His shows are outstanding. His positivity is the thing that made me gravitate towards him. And he's done a great job both on the radio shows, on the TV shows, and then what he puts out on social media. He's a huge credit to the game. We're all lucky to have him in it. And like I say, I hope I get the privilege of having him back on the show again before too long. Okay, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on this episode of Next on the Tee. My sincere thanks again to Dottie Pepper, Nick O'Hearn, and Michael Breed for joining me tonight. Scheduled to join me next week are our resident director of instruction, Tom Patchery, will be back, plus two other of the top instructors in the game, Bob Grissett and Christian Sheehan, will be here, plus Kyle Groth of Whiskers Golf will be making his Next on the Tee debut. So it's going to be a great show, folks. I hope you'll come back and be a part of it with us. You can listen to this show as a podcast on just about every major podcast app out there. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podcast.co, Audio Boom, Player.fm, Podbean. If you've got a favorite podcasting app, we're probably on that one too. Just type in Next on the Tee in the search bar. You'll probably find us on there. Please check out our website, nextonthetee.net, to see what our upcoming guest schedule looks like. Plus, we give you links back to recent episodes and individual guest segments. So whether you got 20 minutes or 2 hours, we've got some great golf content on there for you as well. Folks, I can't thank you all again for choosing to listen to this show tonight. I know you've got a lot of great golf podcasts out there to choose from. I am very thankful that you're making Next on the Tee one of them. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.